Yuri Gagarin, first man in space. Unknown facts. For thousands of years, people have been looking at the sky and dreaming to touch the stars. Science and technology started to develop, and the human race was able to fly higher and higher into the sky. And one day, the first man flew into space. Yuri Gagarin was the first son of mankind who saw our Earth from space as a globe. It was on the 12th of April, 1961. He was 27 years old. The Soviet cosmonaut Gagarin took off on the spaceship Vostok 1 from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, from which the spaceships are still launched, and spent 108 minutes in space. His spaceship only made one orbit around the Earth at a distance of 302 kilometers from the ground. Today, where spaceflights are becoming ordinary events, mankind is dreaming about relocation to Mars. We now understand the difficulties of the first flight into space, and we'll talk about Gagarin and the unknown facts of his flight. Yuri Gagarin was born in a peasant family in 1934. His father was a carpenter. His mother was a milkmaid in a local collective farm. Yuri Gagarin was the fourth child in the family. He had two brothers and one sister. He could only finish school after World War II. At the age of 20, Gagarin came to the local aero club to learn to fly an airplane. When Gagarin was learning to fly, he had problems with landing. They already wanted to expel him from the aero club, but the flight director suggested that Gagarin had a different viewing angle due to his small stature. Since then, they had to put a pillow on his seat. In 1955, Gagarin went to serve in the Soviet army as a military pilot. Several years after, in 1959, the Soviet space program was started. The candidates for the space group were selected from pilots who were not older than 30. As soon as Gagarin found out about the recruitment of the candidates for the space group, he immediately wrote a report on enrollment in this group. In 1960, Gagarin completed the training course and was enrolled in the Soviet cosmonaut group. Only men with a height of no more than 175 centimeters and a weight of 70 to 72 kilograms were accepted into the cosmonaut group. This was due to the dimensions of the Vostok spaceship capsule. In order to start training to be a cosmonaut, Gagarin with his wife and two daughters moved to the cosmonaut camp that was located near Moscow. The training was really hard and took a lot of time, so Gagarin could only meet his family on weekends. He loved his family. He knew lots of poems which he told to his daughters. He also brought animals back home: ducks, chickens, squirrels, cats, dogs, and once a deer lived in his home. Gagarin was a very communicative person. Many friends gravitated to him. He organized hockey and football games, walks in the wood, regular morning exercises with family and friends. He was engaged in jogging and gymnastics, loved tennis, went water skiing, but basketball was the astronaut's main hobby. The cosmonaut squad consisted of 20 people. All of them were perfectly prepared, courageous, and ready to fly into space. Between them, it was necessary to choose the only one who would be the first. An unnamed interview was held among the candidates for astronauts. Most of them named Gagarin as the person most suitable for the first flight into space. Despite the fact that the pilot was not a leader in any field of training, in terms of his combination of skills, character traits, and psychological stability, he was recognized as ideally suited for travel into space. Gagarin was chosen almost by chance, just 4 days before the flight started. The date of the flight into space was kept secret, and even Gagarin's wife did not know that he was chosen to fly into space. Before the flight, Gagarin wrote a letter to his wife in case of an accident, in which he wrote that he believed in the spaceship and asked to raise and educate children and help his parents. That letter was given to his wife 7 years later, after Gagarin's death in a plane crash. The Soviet Union wanted to be the first in the space race with America. Therefore, because of the rush, the ship did not have an emergency rescue system. The engineers considered that if the engines stopped, the ships would land in 10 days due to atmospheric braking. That is why, for these 10 days, the supply of food, water, and oxygen was determined to keep the astronaut alive. The Soviet government prepared 3 versions of the TASS announcement about the first flight of the men into space. The first variant of the announcement was in case of a successful flight. The second variant was in case of an accident. And the third one was in case if the astronaut was missing in space. Before takeoff, an inspection showed that the tightness was broken. Then the general designer of the spaceship, who knew the ship for its every bolt, personally unscrewed 30 nuts and fixed the problem. The flight of the Vostok spacecraft was really high risk to Gagarin's life. The chance that the first cosmonaut would die without ever taking off was colossal. Gagarin's phrase, "Let's go" became famous all over the world, and now Russia is applying for a patent for this phrase. Let's listen to this phrase. At that time, no one knew how weightlessness affects a person. No one could guarantee that the cosmonaut can keep working capacity in space. Therefore, the flight took place in automatic mode. Gagarin could take manual control, but to find out the code, he had to solve a mathematical equation to confirm his health condition. He landed on a field where the collective farmers worked. Gagarin landed not in the capsule of the ship, but with a parachute. During the descent, the air valve did not open, and Gagarin had to fix the problem himself. On the flight, Gagarin went with the rank of senior lieutenant and landed as a major. Gagarin's father, having heard the message about Gagarin's flight, said that it was not his son who was in space, because his son is a lieutenant. The space flight was kept in secret. No one was informed about the launch of a man into space. Not one photographer and journalist was present at the start, so all the newsreel footage with Yuri Gagarin was refilmed after his successful flight. After his flight, Gagarin visited 30 countries. In all of these international trips, Gagarin has established himself as a tactful and charming young man. During lunch with the Queen of Great Britain, Yuri Gagarin was confused by the many different types of cutlery which were present at the dinner. The Soviet pilot frankly informed the royal lady that he grew up in the countryside, where there was only one device used for food, a spoon. Elizabeth II replied that she had been brought up in the palace since childhood, but did not remember what forks and knives were for. She took a spoon and began to eat delicious dishes with Gagarin. Another story which happened with Gagarin and Her Majesty Elizabeth II was linked with royal protocol. The Queen invited the astronaut for tea, and then took a picture next to Gagarin as a souvenir, which is forbidden by protocol. The Queen explained her act by the fact that an astronaut is no longer an earthly person, but a heavenly one, so there is nothing offensive for the monarch to be photographed. One of the most memorable details of the first spaceflight was the laces. While Yuri Gagarin was walking on the carpet before reporting to the government on the successful completion of the flight, the untied laces on the boot of the first cosmonaut were captured in the frame. This detail only added to the people's love of Gagarin. The fashionable hairstyle of the beauties of the USSR, braids with bows on one side, received the popular name "Love Me Gagarin." When the pilot himself heard about this, he laughed long and sincerely. On March 27th, 1968, Gagarin performed a training flight and, for unknown reasons, made a maneuver from which he could not get out of. The plane crashed into the ground. Gagarin and his instructor died in the plane crash. The bodies of the pilots were cremated. Urns with ashes were buried in the Kremlin wall. Having made a circle over the Earth, Yuri Gagarin opened a new era of manned space flights and the exploration of outer space by mankind. After the first flight into space, the main thing became clear. A person can exist in space. Nowadays, the World Day of Aviation and Astronautics is celebrated annually on April 12th all over the world. Those 108 minutes of spaceflight changed the world.